Imagine the 1980s, the decade of big hair, loud music, and even louder engines. While some cars like the Mustang and Corvette took the spotlight, dozens of fast, fierce machines were quietly roaring down the streets, overlooked and underrated. These are the sleepers. The cars your neighbor may have owned but never bragged about. But under the hood, pure, unfiltered speed. Today, we're unlocking the garage of history and bringing you 15 of the fastest classic cars from the 1980s that you've probably never heard of. Buckle up, because by the time we hit number 1, you'll be wishing these legends were parked in your driveway. Number 15. 1989. Nissan 300 ZX Turbo Z31. Before the 1990s redefined Japanese sports cars, there was a machine that stood at the crossroads between old-school muscle and the futuristic tech of the new era. The 1989 Nissan 300 ZX Turbo. This car had a bold, wedge-like profile that made it look like a spaceship among more traditional coupes of the decade. Pop-up headlights gave it that classic 80s flair, while the low, wide stance and wraparound rear glass hinted at its performance potential. But step inside, and you'd find something even more fascinating. A digital dashboard that looked like it belonged in a video game, a voice alert system that actually spoke to you, and buttons positioned like a fighter jet's cockpit. But the real beast lived under the hood. A 3.0-liter VG30ET turbocharged V6 that pumped out 200 horsepower. Sure, today that number might not raise eyebrows, but back in '89, that was serious business for a Japanese coupe. What made it more impressive was how it delivered, smooth, responsive, with that addictive turbo spool and torque curve that made you grin every time you hit the throttle. It was fast, yes, but it was also refined. This wasn't just a car for drag races. It was built for the long roads, the twisting highways, the late-night sprints on the freeway. Sadly, it often gets lost in the shadow of the sleeker Z32 that came a year later. But the Z31 Turbo was a trailblazer. It combined Japanese innovation with the raw essence of performance, delivering a machine that was both forward-thinking and deeply connected to the joy of driving. It was the last of the analog warriors, and the first to hint at the digital future. Number 14. 1986. Mazda RX-7 GXL FC. The 1986 Mazda RX-7 GXL wasn't just a car. It was an experience. It looked like a bullet sculpted by the wind, sleek, aerodynamic, with that long hood and short rear deck that gave it perfect sports car proportions. The pop-up headlights were signature 80s cool, but there was more to this machine than just a pretty face. The GXL trim added a layer of luxury and control: leather-wrapped steering, sunroof, superior sound system, and tighter suspension settings that whispered, "This isn't your average compact sports car." But the RX-7's soul lived in the strangest place: its engine. Instead of pistons, it had rotors. The 1.3-liter 13B rotary engine didn't roar. It sang. It revved high, fast, and smooth, delivering 146 horsepower in a way that felt more like jet propulsion than traditional combustion. And because the car was so lightweight, it didn't need monstrous horsepower to feel alive. The power-to-weight ratio, combined with near-perfect 50-50 balance and rear-wheel drive, made it a favorite among enthusiasts. You didn't just drive the RX-7, you danced with it. The FC RX-7 was heavily inspired by Porsche design, and it showed, not just in its curves, but in its precision. Though often overshadowed by the Supra or 300ZX in today's conversation, the RX-7 GXL had a character of its own. It wasn't about brute force. It was about finesse, balance, and connection. And for the lucky few who felt it, it was unforgettable. Number 13. 1982. Toyota Celica Supra Mark II. The 1982 Toyota Celica Supra Mark II was where performance and practicality collided. And the result was magic. With its extended nose, flared fenders, and clean aerodynamic silhouette, the Supra looked fast even when standing still. Toyota split the Celica and Supra into two separate identities with this generation, and this one? It was born to challenge the Americans and Germans on their own turf. The interior was ahead of its time, power everything: cruise control, automatic climate control, and a premium stereo system that made road trips feel like concerts. But the star of the show was under the hood. A 2.8-liter inline-six engine producing about 145 horsepower. It wasn't explosive off the line, but it was buttery smooth. More importantly, it was dependable, a car that loved to be driven hard, day after day, without flinching. The MK Supra may not have the cult following of its later brothers, but it laid the foundation. It told the world that Japanese automakers weren't just about economy cars, they could build grand tourers too. And this one? It whispered rather than screamed, and sometimes, that's all it takes to leave a lasting impression. Number 12. 1980 Ford Capri Turbo European. The 1980 Ford Capri Turbo was a European muscle car, a fastback with attitude and heritage. Designed by Ford of Europe, it carried the soul of the Mustang but wore a sharper, more angular suit. The long hood and sloped rear gave it that classic GT profile, while details like the hood bulge and sporty alloys hinted at something potent underneath. It was the kind of car you'd see parked outside a pub or roaring through the countryside, kicking up gravel with every gear change. And speaking of gear changes, this thing had heart. The 2.3-liter turbocharged inline-four wasn't monstrous, but with 160 horsepower and a lightweight body, it packed a serious punch. It had a raw edge, a little turbo lag, a little whistle. It wasn't refined, but that was the point. It was a driver's car, through and through. The interior was no nonsense. Analog gauges, supportive seats, and just enough comfort to remind you this wasn't a race car, even though it felt like one. While the Capri Turbo didn't make a splash in America, in Europe it became a street legend. Loved by racers and rally drivers, feared on the back roads. This car didn't need fame to make its mark. It just needed an open road, a heavy foot, and a driver who understood that performance isn't just numbers. It's emotion. Number 11. 1987. Chrysler Conquest TSi. The 1987 Chrysler Conquest TSi was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Wide, low, and muscular, with flared fenders and pop-up headlights that made it look more exotic than domestic. And that's because it was, underneath the Chrysler badge, this was a Mitsubishi Starion, imported from Japan and rebadged for the American market. But that didn't matter, because when you saw it, you knew it meant business. The cabin was a driver's paradise. Turbo boost gauges, deep bucket seats, and a cockpit that hugged you like a race suit. And under the hood? A 2.6-liter turbocharged four-cylinder engine cranking out 188 horsepower, enough to put Mustangs and Camaros on notice. It was rear-wheel drive, came with a limited slip differential, and had sharp handling that made it more nimble than its competitors. It felt heavy in a good way. Planted, powerful, and precise. The Conquest TSi didn't have a huge following back then, but it's become a cult icon. It represented a rare moment when American muscle met Japanese engineering, and the result was a car that didn't quite fit into any box, which is exactly why it deserves to be remembered. Number 10. 1985 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe. The 1985 Monte Carlo SS was already a powerful street machine, but Chevrolet had something special up its sleeve. Enter the Aerocoupe, a rare variation built not just for the roads, but for the high-speed oval of NASCAR. Its design told the whole story. From the aggressive front fascia to the sloping, bubble-shaped rear window that reduced drag and added mystique. It looked like it came straight from the track, and that wasn't far from the truth. Only a few thousand were ever made, making it one of the rarest entries in the Monte Carlo family. Under the hood sat a 5.0-liter V8 engine pushing 180 horsepower, paired with a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now, that might not sound like much today, but back in '85, this setup meant business. It roared, it growled, and it pulled with enough torque to make the rear wheels chirp off the line. With beefed-up suspension and quicker steering, the SS wasn't just about straight-line speed. It could hustle through curves, too, something rare for American coupes of the era. The Aerocoupe was a direct response to NASCAR's aerodynamic demands, but on the streets, it gave the driver the thrill of piloting a race-ready machine. It wasn't about refinement, it was about raw presence. And when you saw that sweeping rear glass and heard that rumble, you knew. This car meant performance. Forgotten by many, cherished by collectors, The Monte Carlo SS Aerocoupe is one of the 80s boldest moves. Number 9. 1983 Porsche 944. When Porsche unveiled the 944 in 1983, it was a risk. This wasn't the rear-engined, air-cooled icon the brand was known for. This was something different. The 944 had balance, it had refinement, and most importantly, it had speed, hidden beneath a design that was smooth, subtle, and almost understated compared to the 911. The flared wheel arches, pop-up headlights, and low-slung profile gave it presence without screaming for attention. This was a precision instrument, wrapped in simplicity. The real genius, though, lay in its front mid-engine layout. A 2.5-liter inline-4, producing 143 horsepower, paired with a rear transaxle for perfect 50-50 weight distribution. This meant the 944 wasn't just fast. It handled like a dream. It stuck to the road with the confidence of a car twice its price, and its razor-sharp steering let the driver feel every inch of the pavement. Porsche didn't just build a car with the 944. They built a philosophy. Though it was often overshadowed by its bigger brother, the 911, the 944 carved out its own legacy. It was accessible, exciting, and exceptionally balanced. For purists, it represented everything a driver's car should be: focused, agile, and honest. The 944 is a reminder that speed isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's graceful. Number 8. 1987 Buick GNX. If the 1980s had a villain car, it would be the Buick GNX. Dark, brooding, and brutally fast, this car didn't just break rules, it rewrote them. Based on the already ferocious Grand National, the GNX took things to the extreme. It looked like a shadow on wheels, blacked-out grille, trim, and wheels gave it a stealthy menace that no other muscle car dared to match. It wasn't flashy, but it made a statement, one that echoed loudly at the drag strip. Underneath that sinister exterior was a turbocharged 3.8-liter V6, built in partnership with McLaren Performance Technologies. It made 276 horsepower, but insiders knew it was underrated. This car could outrun Corvettes and Ferraris in its day, all while looking like a grocery getter. The torque hit like a hammer, launching the GNX from 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds. That was supercar territory in 1987. The suspension was upgraded, the transmission was beefed up, and the dashboard even had a boost gauge. Because this car wasn't pretending. Only 547 were ever built, making it not just fast, but legendary. The GNX proved that Buick, the brand known for grandpas and comfort, could build a monster. It was a muscle car for the modern era, one that didn't need a V8 to dominate. The GNX wasn't just a car, it was a warning shot. Number 7. 1984 Lotus Esprit Turbo. The 1984 Lotus Esprit Turbo looked like it had escaped from a sci-fi movie. All sharp angles, low profile, and wedge-shaped aggression. Designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro, it was art in motion. With its wide stance, pop-up lights, and distinctive side intakes, the Esprit didn't just turn heads, it stopped traffic. But beneath that exotic styling was a precision-built machine, crafted to offer more than just beauty. It was about performance, about balance, about purity. Power came from a 2.2-liter turbocharged inline-4 that delivered 210 horsepower. But in a body this light and agile, it felt like so much more. It could hit 60 miles per hour in just over 5 seconds. But more importantly, it could carve corners like few cars of its time. Lotus was famous for their handling, and the Esprit lived up to the hype. It didn't muscle through curves. It danced through them, floating with precision and grace. The Esprit was a favorite among car connoisseurs, appearing in Bond films and exotic car dreams alike. But in the real world, it demanded respect. It was temperamental, unique, and raw. Not everyone could tame it. But those who could never forgot the experience. The 1984 Turbo Esprit wasn't about brute force. It was about finesse. And in that finesse, it found its fury. Number 6. 1983. Delorean DMC-12 Twin-Turbo Prototype. Everyone remembers the Delorean DMC-12 for its time-traveling fame, but few know about the version that could have changed history for real. In 1983, a prototype twin-turbo version was developed by Legend Industries, and it turned the famously sluggish Delorean into a proper speed machine. It kept the iconic brushed stainless steel body, gull-wing doors, and spaceship-like design, but added something the original never had: real power. The standard Delorean was often criticized for being underpowered. But this prototype? It featured a twin-turbocharged PRV V6 that pumped out a jaw-dropping 280 horsepower, nearly double the stock version. It transformed the DMC-12 from a slow cruiser into a performance coupe that could run with the big dogs. The handling was tightened, the acceleration sharpened, and suddenly, the Delorean was more than just a conversation piece. It was a contender. Unfortunately, the company collapsed before the twin-turbo version ever hit production. Only a few were made, and most were lost to history. But in those few test runs, the world caught a glimpse of what the Delorean could have been. Not just a movie star, but a genuine performance legend. It was a what-if that still haunts car lovers today. Number 5. 1987. Callaway Twin-Turbo Corvette B2K. In 1987, the Corvette was already America's sports car. But Callaway Cars, a small tuning company with big ambitions, turned it into something explosive. The B2K package wasn't just a bolt-on mod. It was a factory-approved twin-turbo transformation. At a glance, it still looked like a standard C4 Corvette with its sharp lines, clamshell hood, and digital dash. But underneath the fiberglass skin lurked a storm that could leave even exotic European cars gasping for air. The 5.7-liter V8 was fitted with two massive turbochargers, boosting its output to an astonishing 345 horsepower, more than the Ferrari Testarossa at the time. This power launched the B2K from 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds and pushed it past 175 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest cars on American roads. And yet, it retained the daily drivability of a stock Vetta, until you stepped on the gas and unleashed the fury. Only a few hundred of these were ever built, each one a numbered piece of Corvette history. It was a collaboration that felt like rebellion, a tuner working hand-in-hand with a major automaker to build something wild. Today, the B2K is a legend not just for its speed, but for how it redefined what a Corvette could be. Number 4. 1982. Ford Mustang GT. 5.0 HO. The early 80s weren't kind to muscle cars. Gas crises and emissions laws neutered performance. But then came the 1982 Mustang GT 5.0 HO. It was Ford's battle cry, declaring that American performance was back. The boxy fox body design was simple, yet purposeful. Wide stance, bold badging, and that deep 5.0 logo on the fender that would become iconic for a generation of gearheads. The heart of the beast was a high-output 5.0-liter V8, making 157 horsepower, modest by today's standards, but massive in a world still reeling from malaise. With a lightweight chassis and a 4-speed manual, the Mustang suddenly had muscle again. It roared to life with a growl that echoed the golden era of the 60s, yet with a modern edge that captured the youth of the 80s. The 82 GT was more than a car. It was a symbol of rebirth. Ford had taken a struggling nameplate and given it purpose. It laid the foundation for the Mustang's future dominance in the pony car wars, and it became the blueprint for every 5.0 Mustang to come. It wasn't the fastest car on paper, but it sparked a movement. Number 3. 1986. Mercedes-Benz 190. E2.3-16 Cosworth. On the surface, the Mercedes 190E looked like a luxury compact sedan. Elegant, refined, and poised. But when the British engineering legends at Cosworth got involved, everything changed. The result was the 2.3-16, a stealthy performance machine wrapped in a tuxedo. Subtle ground effects, a discreet spoiler, and flat-faced alloy wheels hinted at something different, something sharper. Its secret weapon? A Cosworth-tuned 2.3-liter inline-4 with 16 valves, producing 185 horsepower and a 7,000 RPM redline. It could sprint to 60 in under 7 seconds and corner like it was born for the track. The suspension was upgraded, the gearbox was dog-legged for racing efficiency, and the handling was surgical. This wasn't a muscle car. It was a scalpel. The 190E's defining moment came at Nürburgring, where a young Ayrton Senna humiliated F1 legends in a one-make race, forever etching the car into motorsport folklore. It became the foundation for the legendary DTM touring cars and showed the world that Mercedes could go toe-to-toe with BMW's M division. The 190e 2.3-16 wasn't flashy, but it was ferocious. Number 2. 1984 RUF BTR Porsche 911. Turbo RUF isn't your average tuner, it's a manufacturer in its own right, and in 1984, it built something that even Porsche had to admire: the BTR. Based on the Porsche 930 Turbo, the BTR Group B Turbo RUF was essentially a 911 taken to the extreme. The design stayed true to Porsche DNA: sloped rear, wide hips, whale-tail spoiler, but the performance leaped into another galaxy. A Lotus Roofs team took the 3.3-liter flat six and massaged it to deliver 374 horsepower, thanks to a bigger turbo, intercooler, and refined engine management. The BTR could hit 190 miles per hour, making it one of the fastest street cars of the decade. And it wasn't just about straight-line speed with precise suspension tuning and bulletproof engineering. The BTR was track-capable and autobahn-dominating. It was also rare handcrafted, expensive, and meticulously built for the elite few who wanted Porsche quality with a RUF twist. This was the car that put RUF on the map and set the stage for even crazier builds, like the CTR Yellowbird. The BTR was the ghost in the 911 family, rarely seen, but unforgettable. Number 1. 1989 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am Turbo 20th Anniversary Edition. At the top of the list sits a forgotten icon with turbocharged glory: the 1989 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am 20th Anniversary Edition. On the outside, it looked like the ultimate evolution of the 80s Trans Am pop-up headlights, aggressive ground effects, and the iconic screaming chicken on the hood. But this wasn't just a celebration, it was a revolution. Instead of the usual V8, Pontiac borrowed the turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 from the Buick GNX, yes, that GNX, and dropped it into the lightweight Firebird. The result? A 250-horsepower sleeper that could do 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds, and the quarter-mile in 13.4. It was faster than a Ferrari Mondial, and smoked most of its competition. With improved suspension, unique badging, and only 1,555 units built, it was as exclusive as it was explosive. The 20th Anniversary TTA was even chosen as the pace car for the Indy 500. A high honor that proved its performance wasn't just hype. It was the last great muscle hurrah of the 80s, combining innovation, speed, and iconic American style. Today, it's an underground legend, the best Trans Am most people never knew existed. And there you have it, 15 classic cars from the 80s that didn't just drive, they roared through history. Each one a hidden legend. Which one stole your heart? Let us know in the comments. Love rare muscle and forgotten speed? Then like the video, share it with your crew, and don't forget to subscribe because we're just getting started.